Ki te kaunihera o Rotorua. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rotorua Lakes Council. We are going to restart our council hearings, and it's great to have people here in person, and we also will have some people joining us by Zoom as well. Before we get underway, though, I will just invite Councillor Wang to start our hui with a karakia.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tutawa mai runga, tutawa mai raro, tutawa mai roto, tutawa mai waho. Kia tawai te mauritu, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, tae kie.
So this is day 2 of our local alcohol policy hearings. And what we're going to do is, I'll just double check if there are any declarations of interest. There do appear to be none, and I'll ask for any apologies. We do have one from Councillor Brown, who has indicated he has interest, so he won't be voting on this matter, and also Councillor Lee. And we do have Councillor Maxwell, who's just walking down the hall, and Councillor Waru, who won't be too far away due to other commitments. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? That's moved by Councillor Kaifong, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. That is carried. So the order that we've got today is we're going to start with our representatives from Health NZ. Then we'll go to Paul Radich, Jennifer Lamb, Reg Hennessy, Memory Jenner, and then Luke Van Veen. So we'll start off. It's my pleasure to invite Dr. Lynn Lane down from Health New Zealand, and you'll also see that you've been given some further talking points in front of you. Now, to all of our submitters, you have 5 minutes for your presentation today. I do note that this is being live streamed as well, and the recording will be available on YouTube. And just to help for timing purposes, we will have a timer just over here for you to see, but I'll give you a heads up when your time has expired and you can wrap up. If there is any time remaining and you feel comfortable, we're also happy to ask questions of you two for further information. But it's my pleasure now to hand over to Dr. Lynn Lane. Kia ora.
Hear me?
Oh, and sorry, just push the little button until the light's green.
There we go. Morena koutou, ko Lynn Lane tuku ingoa. I am a designated medical officer of health at Te Whata Ora, and I'm based in Tauranga. And today I'm here with my team. Some of them are sitting alongside me. And I would like to give you the opportunity for some questions. You have our submission, and I've given you a copy of my talking notes. I cannot get through it in 5 minutes, so I am just going to highlight a few things for you. I'm here as a designated officer because I have responsibilities under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, and the experience I bring with me is 40 years as a clinician, and 40 years ago as a clinician starting in Rotorua, and then as a GP in Taupo, and I was also the Mental Health Commissioner at the time that the Select Committee was taking submissions on the actual Act that now is in place that I'm here talking to you today because of. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the work that Council and staff and elected members have completed and commend you on your draft policy. I think it's an excellent document. However, my message is simple. We are really concerned that the current LAP is not delivering on the objects of the Act to minimise harm, and that the draft may not either unless it is really strengthened. Our concerns are based on the information that we've provided to you around the population profile, which is a really unique one, has lots of strengths, but because it's relatively young, very high proportion of Maori, and the most socially deprived NZ10 debt group is growing at a rapid pace. You've got a large socially deprived population, so very vulnerable to alcohol-related harm. The other issue that's driving our concern is that the rates of alcohol-related harm prior to COVID were decreasing, but our data now tells us that they are increasing. You were below the average, you're now above it, so things are going seriously wrong. The other issue that we're concerned about that you don't hear much about is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. We or we believe that the prevalence of it is much greater than we suspect, and the ongoing costs associated with it are significant. Given the population profile, you will have lots of young women that are drinking, that don't know that they are pregnant, because there is no safe alcohol level of consumption while you're pregnant. The risk of fetal alcohol syndrome is really high. The damage from it is profound and lifelong. We don't have prevalence data, but we estimate in our prisons about 30% of the prison population have undiagnosed or didn't have diagnosed FASD, didn't get the help they need, and are thereby in prison. So really serious problem, really big issue for you to think about how you reduce that level of risk. So I think also we wanted to highlight that your community is now becoming really concerned about what's happening, and they've demonstrated their concern in the level of objections to local applications for licences, also through the submissions that I've seen and in the alcohol community survey. I think one of the things that highlight the level of concern is that you hit a national record with objections to an off-licence application, over 700 applications. So the community is definitely concerned about what's happening. Finally, I just want to make a few comments about our submission, which you have had the opportunity to look at. I'd just like to highlight 4 things that we would really like you to include in your new policy. They have been trialled by other councils with good effect, or that internationally they've shown to be effective. The first is that we absolutely support your ban on new off-licences. Secondly, we reduce the off-licence trading hours to be reduced to from 9 a.m. in the morning to 9 a.m. at night. So really restrict the... we also recommend that for new off-licences, that you increase the exclusion distance from 200 metres to 400 metres from marae and education facilities. Again, there's really good evidence that this will make a big difference in terms of the socialisation of harmful drinking amongst children. We recommend that you require FASD signage in single alcohol areas and at point of sale. So really important to remind people about the dangers of FASD. And incidentally, this policy would be a New Zealand first, so you'd be leading the way with this. And we really need to see action on this, on reducing this risk. So in closing, I just want to congratulate you all on the work done to date. Reducing or minimising alcohol-related harm is a government priority. It's one of the 5 top priorities for Te Whara Ora, so it is incredibly important. You have the opportunity of demonstrating how much you care about your community by putting in place a really robust LAP that will minimise alcohol-related harm and essentially make the healthy choice the easy choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lynn. Unfortunately, that is all the time, so we won't have time for questions, but we thank you for the information you've provided and also actually for the work that you have done for ensuring that our communities are healthy over many, many years. We acknowledge your team members from Te Whatu Ora too.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So we're now going to go online and we'll just take a moment to admit our next submitter. Elected members, we are going to go to page 30 of your submissions, and this is Paul Radich from General Distributors, who is the Woolworths Group. So welcome, Paul. We've got you online. You have 5 minutes to make your submission, and thank you very much for taking the time to do so this morning. Over to you.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I'm conscious that time is limited, so our submission is certainly fulsome in terms of some of the matters we'd like addressed. But if I could briefly touch on them, and and then obviously I'm available for any to answer any questions. Perhaps start with the simplest things. The suggestion in terms of conditions for off licences as put through in the documentation suggests that the council should impose mandatory new conditions on all off licences. The Act does not allow for councils to impose mandatory conditions, and in fact the only people that can impose mandatory conditions on any licence is the New Zealand Parliament. So we would ask for that particular section to be removed. And in terms of discretionary conditions, there is a legal test in terms of discretionary conditions which says that the condition must be reasonable, necessary and relevant, and that is based on the case of an individual licensee and the harms surrounding that licensee or that licensee's premises. Certainly having discretionary conditions listed in an LAP does not enable or empower the DLC to impose them in any way. They have a range of discretionary conditions available to them at any time, based on the evidence that's presented to them by the reporting agencies or objectors. The second thing I wanted to touch on very briefly is the rebuttable presumption, or the freeze on new licences, and the rebuttable presumption which appears to be, from reading the documentation, rebuttable presumption. In other words, nothing new within the given location. That makes it very difficult for us to invest as a business in Rotorua, and certainly we have plans of investing in Rotorua, simply because we're unable to compete with our closest competitor if we don't offer a full range of services. I understand if the council wishes to adopt a freeze for a certain period of time, but this documentation appears to suggest that the freeze is permanent until the LAP is reviewed. And the third thing I wanted to address very briefly was the new closing hours that are suggested in the documentation. The council's own document says that reducing the trading hours will have no effect on alcohol-related harm. It will simply reduce availability. And if that's the outcome, perhaps there's another way of achieving what the council's desire here is, rather than simply applying a blunt tool by reducing hours or reducing the maximum trading hours of stores. Certainly something similar was adopted. We haven't seen any decrease in the amount of alcohol being sold. We've just seen that behaviour has become much more condensed, and in fact in some areas we've seen alcohol sales go up. But from a business perspective, that's cost us over $1 million to implement. That simple, or what was perceived as a relatively simple change, is actually really expensive for a business like ours to implement across a region. As I mentioned, our submission is far more fulsome. It's an 8-page submission. Those are the issues that I wanted to touch on very briefly. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Brian.
Thank you, Te Mana Kura, and through the Chair. Thank you very much for coming on this morning. Thank you for your submission. Could I just ask, in relation to your statement around the closing hours, when you say it cost you $1 million, etc., I fully take that on board, but can you explain, like, if you know that the hours are X, you take on as a businessman the risk, do you not, that those hours could be changed, whether it's brought back an hour, if it's allowed, extended another hour? Those are always variables, are they not?
Yes, they are, and we accept that. What we're trying to show is that, or the purpose of our submission is in terms of reducing alcohol-related harm. The jury is well and truly out on whether it's actually achieved its stated goal. The reality of it is we've closed a number of stores in Auckland, for example. We've closed a number of stores early, but people still expect to be able to come to the supermarket and buy their groceries up until a reasonable time of night. And when that happens, we have to take precautions in order to ensure that we are compliant with our licence, and that's where the expense comes in. There's significant changes to the point of sale system, our stores in Auckland and anywhere in the country where this type of policy will be applied. The area needs to be fenced and screened off and secure. There's obviously, accelerated issues in terms of staff safety. So there's a range of things. It's not as simple as simply reducing the training hours by an hour or extending them by an hour. There are a number of things that go on behind the scenes that all come at a cost that to deal with policy changes such as this. If it was a store-specific change, then that's slightly different. But we're talking about a regional change here.
All right. Thank you for your answer. Thank you, Te Matakuta.
Thank you very much, Paul. That concludes your time for your submission. We appreciate the detailed submission that you've given in writing and also for presenting to us by video call. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you for your time.
We're just waiting for Jennifer to join us online, so we'll go to the next submitter, which is Reg Hennessy from Hennessy's Irish Bar. Welcome, Reg. And elected members, this is page 56 of your submissions.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Tapsell, and your council.
Oh, sorry, Reg, if you could just put your mic on so the... Yep. Is it green?
Is that it?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Mayor Tapsell, and your council for giving the opportunity to present on Rotorua's local alcohol policy. I wanted to present in person because I really care about the state of Rotorua's local and liquor and hospitality industry. I really care about the CBD of Rotorua and its people, and I really care about our tourism industry. I have been in the hospitality industry for 41 years, starting in Melbourne and finishing at Hennessy's Irish Bar. Our really battling CBD, that's where we are. I've run bars in Rotorua CBD since 1993 and Hennessy since building and opening in 2002. With only 5 minutes per present, I have limited my oral submission to just two parts, the main one being trading hours. Trading hours on licence. In 2002, Hennessy's opened at 6 a.m. to 3 a.m., had a 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. licence. I draw on my own experience over many years having a 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. licence and having had no serious problems associated with it. At the last Liquor Act came in, Hennessy's, along with every other 6 a.m. on licence, lost the ability to open at 6 a.m. for sale of liquor. In one single swipe of a pen, we lost 14 hours of trade per week. No justification was ever made, and I still don't know what the reason for the change was, or if the removal of those 2 hours has made the slightest bit of difference to the health and well-being of our community, or to the amount of violence that has disappeared because of the 8 a.m. opening. And now, with another arbitrary swipe of a pen, we'll lose another 7 hours if we should drop our closing time from 3 a.m. to 2 a.m. So if we add the 2 hours we'd already previously lost and the 7, we will be losing 21 hours of trading time per week. This equals 1,100 hours per year. Our staff miss out on these available hours as they're all highly paid hours, and how many businesses in New Zealand will want to lose the ability to trade to meet demand to employ their staff, and that's a situation this could possibly force us into. Why not just treat each licence on its own merit? Look after people in the hospitality industry who are trying to do the right thing. Trust me, the industry sorts out the bad operators. If our regulators are doing their jobs properly, they should be able to identify them. Then bring down the big stick. As I have said in my written submission, if you want Rotorua, presently New Zealand's #2 tourist destination, to fade even further behind Queenstown, the #1 tourist destination in New Zealand, close us down earlier in the night and tell the tourists to be all like good little Kiwis and be in bed by 1 p.m. regarding the Eat Street closing hours, the 1 a.m. closing time is obviously about problems within Eat Street. I suggest the reason for taking a bar like Hennessy's Irish Bar from 3 a.m. back to 2 a.m. is to align with the changes that are needed in Eat Street. I would like to point out that when the Eat Street idea was first mooted, I was asked by council and regulators of the day what I thought of the idea. My response was great, as all tourist cities worldwide have dining precincts, but be very careful on the type of licences you hand out if you want Eat Street for the purpose of dining, hosting locals, international and domestic tourists. Steer clear of tavern and bar or nightclubs type licences. Guess what? No one listens, so today we have the problem that we've got. I would sum up by suggesting that we have here is very blunt tool to solve a very complex issue, which is harm caused by alcohol abuse, a tool which I believe will not address the issues that Rotorua has. And following the plan outline, you will help kill the second biggest employer of staff in New Zealand, the hospitality industry in Rotorua. And you will harm our returning tourism and event industry and sort of cancel any opportunities we have for getting some of the major events like major sporting events or concerts, etc., where people like to go out and have a drink and socialise afterwards. Finally, I'd like you to consider the powers you are suggesting to give to local licensing committee. With these powers, the committee can add conditions beyond the intentions you assume. These could be in place forever. In saying all of this, many in our industry are trying to, what I'm trying to say is what I'm worried about is the powers you're handing over to the licensing committee. If these are put in place by them, they're then there forever. And we're talking about things like a bar like ours, if there's problems in the street and they could decide to put cameras out late at night or even take our hours back to a lesser time, close us down earlier at night. And once these things happen, will never be able to be changed again. And I agree with the issues that are there, and I think their place should be more to sort out, like happy hours in Rotorua, for example. Nearly every bar or restaurant or cafe in Eat Street or all the way uptown run happy hours. I think these are the areas that we should be looking at more than the trading hours, what's going on in the bars during those times, I think is the most important thing. And saying all this, many in our industry are trying to address these very difficult issues in their own practice. Leading the way in this is the Hospitality New Zealand Association, which I'd like to encourage all operators to belong to, if for nothing else other than the training and support we provide. I've been president of the Bay of Plenty branch for 22 years and a national board member and vice president, and feel very passionate about it. Joining this association, the type of message I would like our DLC to recommend, as this will help these businesses in their learnings with issues that may arise to them. Thank you for your time. To present my submission, please consider your decisions today, because whatever you decide could be with us for a long time in the future and never be able to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reg, for your submission and also the detail you've provided in your written submission as well, which we'll take on board. We're going to go back online to our participants in Zoom, and Alcohol Health Watch. We'll just check if there is a submitter from there. Yes. Oh, kia ora. Good morning. So you have 5 minutes to make your submission, and we'll let you know when that time is up. If there is time available, we'll ask questions. And elected members, this is the submission on page 38. So we'll hand over now to Alcohol Health Watch. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship, and elected members for the opportunity to address you this morning. I'm Andrew Galloway, the Executive Director of the Alcohol Health Watch, and I'm joined by my colleagues. We are a national organisation providing credible, up-to-date evidence policy and planning matters. We coordinate networks such as the Cross Council Local Alcohol Policy Network and other networks and projects that support the sector and communities. We want to commend the Council on undertaking a review of the 2019 local alcohol policy, and in particular note the work that Alex has done to get this here today. We thank you for the opportunity to make this submission. Our written submission outlined the reasons why a local alcohol policy is a key measure in a package of interventions and policies aiming at minimising alcohol harm to individuals, whānau and the community. Other measures include the alcohol ban bylaw that you've done in 2018, the Council's functions as a licensing authority, and the work you do around community safety projects and initiatives. Alcohol places a significant burden on the city and indeed the whole country. Nationally, alcohol is estimated costing over 9.1 billion annually, and we know that what evidence there is likely an underestimate of the total burden of disease that particularly affects vulnerable groups, young people, Māori, those in high socioeconomic deprivation areas. Noting that alcohol is the most harmful drug in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we know that a local alcohol policy can reduce this harm by reducing the density, location of alcohol outlets, setting maximum trading hours that address accessibility, sale and consumption of alcohol. A revised local alcohol policy can and should reflect the current environment and emerging issues in the district since 2019. It should and does address the desirability of greater consistency and synergy with local alcohol policies in the wider Bay of Plenty and Waikato regions and across Aotearoa, New Zealand. It should adopt a precautionary approach to minimising alcohol harm and reflect the preferences of the community. We are therefore pleased to see that this draft LAP proposes a temporary freeze for 3 years on new off licences with a rebuttable presumption thereafter on the issuing of new licences. We would further recommend that a permanent freeze or sinking lid be considered for bottle shops in areas with a high socio-economic deprivation index. We are very supportive of a reduction for closing times for on and off licences, as these changes reflect community concerns and are supported by research evidence. We would recommend the opening hours also be changed, particularly for off licences. We note that this LAP permits off licence premises to open at 7 AM, whereas off licence hours in LAPs are increasingly set to 9 AM to 9 PM, and we agree with the Medical Officer of Health on that point. We welcome the broader definition of sensitive sites that would now include sites other than education facilities or morais. The policy now reflects the majority of LAPs that have also included sites that are in this draft, such as places of worship, treatment facilities, community facilities. We support the requirement for applicants for new off licences to undertake pre-engagement with sensitive sites that are outside the city centre and within a 200-metre radius. In addition, we would like to see sensitive sites policy extended to other licence types, not just new off licences, and we would further recommend a policy under section 77(1) A and B that addresses location of premises, namely restricting premises to a broad area such as a specified zone, or ensuring that new licensed premises are not in close proximity clustered with other premises. We strongly support the inclusion of additional discretionary conditions, including those that address single sales, remote dispatch of alcohol hours, external alcohol product advertising and display, buy now, pay later schemes, ID checks on purchase and delivery of alcohol, and those that align to crime prevention through environmental design and social responsibility. We would encourage consideration of discretionary condition that would see FASD warning signage at off licences and not allowing special licences for family-focused events. We also support a one-way door condition, as these policies have the potential to reduce the burden on police, ambulance, hospital services, and can have a positive benefit, not only for the patrons of the premises, but the community generally. Alcohol harm increases when alcohol is easily accessible, where there is a high concentration of outlets and in a particular area, for example, in areas of high deprivation, where trading hours are long, where businesses are conducted in such a way that impulsive alcohol purchases are encouraged, such as buy now, pay later, online sales and rapid delivery, and of course, where the price is affordable. Considering this, Alcohol Health Watch fully supports the strengthened provisions in your draft LAP, particularly the temporary freeze and rebuttable presumption for new licences, reduced trading hours and inclusion of new conditions addressing affordability and access. These measures strongly align with the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 and will go some way to reducing the high burden of alcohol, its harm and costs on Rotorua. Thank you for the opportunity to present. We're very happy to take questions. Kia ora.
My muko sitting in alongside me. He's just taking time off from storm in Melbourne, so literally. So he also wanted to witness how we do things in New Zealand and Rotorua. It's close to home for all of us. So kia ora, ko me mjena toku ingoa no Miripara ahau. I was raised in Rotorua, went to Rotorua Girls High, went to Malfoy Primary. This is home. But now I'm living in Miripara and we have 95% of our profits that come to Rotorua. All the shopping, everything happens here. And the few percent that we have over there remains from Galatea, Waihoho, that go to Whakatane. So my job is community action, youth and drugs, and all about drug and alcohol harm minimisation. I wanted to keep this really simple, but then I've had to change everything. So I want you to think about when our young ones come home, what do they see? What do our young ones see? And that's what's really neat. So I asked them. And it's all about, I'm so glad that he's so busy training where a lot of our children in Miripara aren't. They don't have the opportunities to come in to Rotorua unless they're done by the school. But once they're older, where do they go? Nowhere. So if we're looking at communities affected by alcohol harm, especially Māori, youth, all our rangatahi running lists, low-income neighbourhoods, what does this give to us, this LAP? What does it prove? I'm sick of seeing policy because it's chucked aside once it's done. What practices are in place to make sure that things sit for our rangatahi and for our vulnerable communities? Is there anything along with the policy that actually helps drive and makes it more effective so that alcohol-related harm in Rotorua will help our young people get jobs? And we know in the hospitality industry, all our kids from Miripara come and get jobs in the bars and in the restaurants. I'm not knocking that. But what I'm saying is they still need to be prepared, that they've got someone else has got their back in the background. They can't be expected to do it all themselves. So as a community, our council also has that responsibility too. So don't just think of the people up here, think of the young ones coming through in industry, and we're promoting economic development. The other thing is education and support. Are there complementary education or support initiatives planned alongside this policy? That's what we're interested in. Things that will make it go bump. And I actually don't want a bump, I want to see a bang. I want to see our young people grow and thrive in Rotorua like I did. I want to be able to see them sit here and come home from Australia and say, this is home too. And I have this to offer the community. What can you offer me so I can give back? That's what I want to see. I have 10 children and they work all over the place. I have 23 muko and he's number 4. They come home and see everything that Rotorua has to offer. Soon he'll be jumping out of a plane, trying skydiving. And he's taking a break from Melbourne Storm under 17s. So it's really neat to know that our rangatahi have something in place that will back them up when they come home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Memory. There is a minute remaining if anybody has any questions. No, I think you've been very clear in your submission. Thank you very much, and we acknowledge and appreciate you bringing a voice from Murupara as well, a place that has strong connections with Rotorua. We wish you moko all the best, but we hope that this weekend the Warriors still beat the Storms. Up the Waz. Thank you very much. So now we will go to Luke Van Veen from Hospitality NZ, and this is on page 26 of your submissions. Welcome, Luke.
Morning all, thank you very much for your time. I'll just sort of dive into it. I haven't done a big one right up. I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions, I suppose, because I think there's a lot more value in that than me just sitting here talking to you. But obviously Hospitality New Zealand, we've advocated on behalf of the industry and tourism sector for over 120 years, and we support improved industry across New Zealand through advocacy, training and connection. If anyone that doesn't know, I'm the Regional Manager for Central North Island. We've always put a written submission in. I just want to highlight a couple of quick points on that today and then leave it for questions. Big one for us on the off-licence policy options is we're opposed to the council preferred option choice of 2 of a temporary freeze on all off-licences across the this is not a lasting solution. It is our view that the DLC should be assessing each application on its own merits as required by the Act. So the Act already has this in place that if the amenity in good order is affected by a large degree, the licence shouldn't be granted. And we're okay with that, and they're clear. So we support option 1 here in the status quo that allows the ability for businesses to grow within the city, not oversaturate off licences, and this will allow support of even big new breweries or distilleries, other big businesses that might want to come into the region as well, on a case-by-case basis. I just want to make a note here too for the councillors that 2003, the new legislation was obviously changed in the Committee Participation Act, just in reference to one of the points before around Rotorua seeing one of the largest objections to an off-licence. Well, anywhere in New Zealand now you can object to any licence in any way. So I could be sitting in Macaulay right now and I could object to something in Auckland or here in Rotorua. So just something to weigh in on that one as well, is that's a very new policy which we're still only just starting to see the effects of now, and it's very, very challenging in our industry with that one. Obviously something else I just would like to note in ours is around the closing hours and delivery off licence is just around the wording in this policy, as it doesn't capture it very well with remote sales and wholesale. I'm very, very worried that the wholesale is going to get affected here around distribution here with the change in the off licence hours. Just around the wording in your policy isn't very clear, so I'd really recommend some focus there, as we don't want to see all the trucks and congestion on the road at 9 AM trying to get that delivery to on-premise because of a wording error, if you like. Outside of that, really going to move on to my on-licence policy here around the trading hours, as well as we're obviously in opposition to option 2 here for you as well regarding the closing hours in a city. We don't agree that controlled environments such off-licence are a major cause of fights and homelessness and vandalism in the city. Obviously, Rotorua attracts international travellers, events to the city to focus looking forward to ensure offering, enticing these events, not closing your city down is really, really important. We're obviously big support of option 1, maintaining the status quo here, is where Hospitality New Zealand would like to sit. And my last one I'd just like to raise for yourselves as well, councillors, is on both off and on licence, you talk of sensitive sites and the inclusion of residential activity. Again, under the Act, this is already there that objections can be made, and I guess I take you to the point of resource consent is already issued for these sites to have commercial activity in them, whether it be bar, restaurant. Why does then the operator need to go to houses that are within 200 metres of itself, door to door, making sure they've talked to these people individually to get their permission for this licence? It's not necessary, it's already done, and if Resource Act has already been granted for this purpose of these sites, it's not necessary. So I just raised that point that we've put in our written submission as well, where I really urge the residential activity should not be included as a sensitive site, as there's already provisions under the Act for that. Like I said, I wanted to leave a little bit of time, as 5 minutes isn't a lot, so I'm just going to leave it there, open up for questions, and I please urge you to talk to us, myself included, obviously, right now, as well as Hospitality New Zealand. I actually own 2 bars and restaurants as well, not here in your lovely city, but back over the way in beautiful sunny Bay of Plenty, Mount Maunganui. So please fire away, as there's lots of questions that you must have from reading all our submissions.
Thank you very much, Luke. Are there any questions? Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Luke, for your submission. Just on your point in your submission around the off-license policy options, talking about density and the closing hours and deliveries, you support option 1, which is staying with the status quo with that. And so I guess, we've heard from others as well around the significant number that were against one of the off-license applications here in Rotorua, record-breaking in the country. Why is it, do you think, that would be that was the case?
Yeah, look, I guess I can't tell you why that is. I don't have that data in front of me, but I guess my point there is what I'm talking around is then for that case in particular, again, there's already mechanisms in the Act to allow the DLC to make decisions on that application alone. And now that's exactly what the Act is there for and the DLC is there for. So in that case, maybe that application definitely isn't granted. Look, and I can't speak for the DLC's decision either, but I guess what I want to raise to you there is that is the case, and maybe in that position it was not as suitable because the meeting good order was going to be affected to a large degree. Well then no, it shouldn't be granted, because that is what the Act is there for, to minimise harm. To blanket freeze the whole entire city or to really cut hours down, because it's going to then affect a lot more in a broader sense, isn't a solution. It's a, well, without being rude, so it's a cop-out. We have these in position already for the DLC to make those decisions. And my other point to that is, if I don't know when this exact application was lodged, but if it was after 2023, when the submissions Community Act was amended, where did all of those come from? Because we've actually heard, and I'm dealing with law firms now that are dealing in hearings, having community organisations just actively going around and objecting to licence way outside their premise just because they don't like it or want to. Now, what is that causing? Well, how is that a fair mechanism as well, that now anyone could object to a licence with no real merit behind that licence and understanding what's going on? They don't know the meeting in good order it's affecting in what way, positive or negative, but they can now object to that, and it's straight away into hearing. So there's already mechanisms in place, and so I just, for that one there, for me, is very big on saying, look, a blanket freeze, closing hours for me as well. Our one there is more around on the wholesale, just really, look, want to make sure that the wording doesn't capture that. Remote sales is where obviously that is applied for, and that's fine. Again, remote sales needs to have some more stringency on, but making sure that wholesale isn't then caught into that. Why is someone like Gilmore's or those guys that are delivering their trucks to an on-premise site affected by that part of the legislation when that sale is not happening? It's a delivery point, but in the wording of the Act and the LAP right now, it doesn't make that clear whether they're captured or not.
Yes, thank you very much, Luke. That concludes the time for the submission, but we appreciate the detail that you've provided there as well. Certainly something for us to consider. And so that was Luke, our Central North Island Regional Manager of Hospitality NZ.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our final submitter today is Kieran Tahata, and this is submission on page 83. Kia ora, Kieran.
Kia ora koutou. As you said, my name is Kieran. I'm here. Like the fire, no murupara ahau. I'm here to speak in support of the Rotorua Lakes Council's review of the local alcohol policy. I just want to say I'm a living product of alcohol harm in our whānau. Here to represent my community because alcohol harm is real, and I wanted to change like the fire. And what I want to change is the trading hours. That's what I'm in support of, from 9 to 10. As you read my submission, I don't want to say, but yeah, it's so convenient to get alcohol. And if it's reduced, then there won't be no harm, and there'll be more. It'll be more safe, and yeah. And thank you. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Tēnā koe, Kieran, ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Thank you very much, and also for your submission in person as well, and being here to share your journey and also the harm that you've experienced. We acknowledge that. Are there any questions for Kieran? Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Kieran. Personally, just want to thank you for your courage and your bravery for being here and presenting to us today and talking about your journey. Talking about the off-licence, the restriction in the hours, opening hours, from your experience as well, with the changes proposed in it, or potentially even more restrictive or looser, depending on how it goes, from your perspective, what kind of a real impact would that make?
For me, say, like, in my whānau, alcohol was the only way they could deal with their problems, and anything minor, be like, Kieran, go get me some alcohol. And because at the time I was a people pleaser, and I'd say, oh, okay, and go and get it for them because it was easier. And we could be already drinking at 9:20, and it's the alcohol stores close at 9:50. We would be made to race down to the low alcohol store at 9:30 to get there at 9:50 to get the alcohol. So the impact, I don't know how to say it, Councillor, but...
Okay, so say if the hours were brought to be more restrictive and closed earlier, you think that would really make a...
It would really make a difference because it won't be open, and it won't be convenient to go and get. And when it's not there, then you just have to deal with what you're going through instead of going and getting the alcohol. Because that's all what people know. And yeah, so it'll really help reducing the hours.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Well, thank you very much, Kieran. We appreciate you taking the time to be here in person, and do acknowledge your courage in both your written and your presence here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our hearings. We did have two submitters that weren't available, so we will complete this process, and I might invite Councillor Waru if you could close us with a karakia.
Tika, kia ingo I tata. E honora he krore ki te atua he maunga arongo ki te whenua he whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa āmi. Tēnei mātou aupuna ngā tuku whakawheta e tuna kia koe ihua. Toro maitori ngā tapukirongi I a mātou e whakaritere tana I a mātou anō. I te whakatakoto I ngā kaupapa tika o te pae ngā tō Rotorua. Tēnei mātou e tuku whakawheta e tuna kia koe ihua. Koe hoki tō mātou kai whakaora. Āmi.
Thank you very much, Ka mihi nui ki a koe, Councillor Waru. We thank all of our submitters, and just a heads up, this council will be making the final decision in May as well. So you can also be here in person if you wish, or tune into our live stream to see the result of that. Thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed.